Hey guys, this is God of Politics, and welcome back to a brand new video. But before we get started with this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, join the Discord that is linked down in the description. But today's video is going to be doing the Senate elections based off of the fundraising numbers. So whoever has more in fundraising, I'm just going to give the seat to them. Looking at the percent of races won by the top spending candidate, usually all the money they raise, they're going to end up spending, so it's very similar to raising anyway. Usually, the candidate that raises the most will win. The amount is highest, obviously, in races, in House races, because there are less known candidates. Whoever can get the message out more is probably going to win. In the Senate, it's a bit less, but it is still, if you're winning in fundraising, you're probably going to end up winning your races. And, people who are good candidates in good states are probably going to start raising more. And, it doesn't necessarily always mean that the person who raises more is going to end up winning, but that's what we're going to be assuming based on these results here. So I have the empty map here. We're just going to be going through each state here, starting off with the state. We'll start in the Northeast and go from east to west here, starting off with the state of Maine here. We're just going to be going through each of these states. Starting off with the state of Maine, we can see the Senate race here. We can see that Sarah Gideon is outraising Susan Collins here. That was one of the interesting things that people saw. And so we are going to give that race to the Democrats. The next state, we're just going to go through each one of these. The next state is the state of New Hampshire. We're going to be blowing through some of these. Republicans don't really have a good candidate here. Jeanne Shaheen is outraising them all. That's another seat to the Democrats. The next state, the state of Massachusetts. This is an interesting one because you have two Democrats that are actually locked in a pretty tight primary. Obviously, the seat's going to go to the Democrats, but it's which Democrat. So that will go to the Democrats there. Same thing with the state of Rhode Island. We'll talk about here in a second. Let's just go down to that. Republicans don't really have a candidate here. You have Jack Reed here, who has outraised the Republican candidate. Going on to the state of New Jersey with Cory Booker here. Cory Booker has outraised Hersht Singh by a lot of money, millions of dollars. That's going to be a seat going to the Democrats. And these are numbers, by the way, from the March 31st, the last FEC report. We're basing it based off of that. And obviously things have changed since then, but that's still what we're going to be basing it off of. The Delaware Senate race, you have Chris Coons, who's easily outraising everybody else there. Next state is the state of Virginia here. Virginia is the state where Mark Warner is up for re-election, and he's easily outraising his opponents here. Next, go to the state of West Virginia. This one's actually going to be a victory for the Republicans here. You have Shelley Moore Capito, who is beating Paula Jean Swearengin. Also Richard Ojeda, but those candidates don't really have much funding. The reports for this was actually a bit more recent, so that's quite interesting. So that's West Virginia there. The next state is North Carolina, which is actually going to be a very interesting election, along with Maine, which we just talked about. Tom Tillis is outraising Cal Cunningham, so that's an interesting result there. That's going to help Republicans in the state. Going to the state just next of it, South Carolina. South Carolina's actually had a lot of funding, $44 million. Jamie Harrison is close to Lindsey Graham, but Lindsey Graham still does outraise Jamie Harrison, but it is closer than some people might think. For the two Georgia races we're going to be going here, there's two Senate elections for this. The first one with David Perdue, he is easily outraising John Ossoff there. And then as for the special Senate election, Kelly Loeffler is easily outraising people, but she isn't likely to win her election after the whole scandal that went on. The next one is the state of Alabama, where you have Doug Jones, who's almost certainly going to lose here, but he is easily outraising both Tommy Tuberville and Jeff Sessions. So this is the first that I could, come out and say that I 100% disagree with, because I think, Alabama is really not going to go to the Democrats here. The next state is the state of Tennessee here. Tennessee is the Senate seat where you have Bill Hagerty up for re-election, who is actually, the Democrat. It's actually the Democrat is behind the second Republican candidate there, so that's really bad for Democrats, but it is Tennessee. The next state is the state of Mississippi here. Mississippi, you have a rematch of the 2018 Senate election between Sidney Hyde-Smith and Mike Espy. Sidney Hyde-Smith is tripling Mike Espy's number there. Going up to Kentucky here, where you have, Mitch McConnell. A lot of Democrats want to unseat Mitch McConnell. It's one of the highest funding races. I think it might be the most. It's got $55 million, and Amy McGrath is actually outraising Mitch McConnell here. She has spent more, but they have a very similar amount of cash in hand. Mitch McConnell with the slight edge here. That's actually very good for Amy McGrath, but I do not think Amy McGrath is going to win at the end of the day. I think that's really unlikely to happen. In Illinois with Dick Durbin here, he is running against Mark Curran, but that's not going to be anything very difficult for him at all. Going to the state of Michigan here. Michigan is a state where you have John James up against incumbent Gary Peters. There's been a lot of funding for this district, for the Senate seat, but Gary Peters does have a slight edge here, and that's going to be good for them. The next state of Minnesota, you have Tina Smith here running against Jason Lewis. Tina Smith is swamping Jason Lewis, which is going to be very good for Democrats in a state. The Republicans now think they can actually win, which is quite interesting here. Iowa, you have Joni Ernst, who's not too popular here, running against Teresa Greenfield, but she is outraising her. Democrats are already at 47 seats here, but we got some good Republican seats coming up here. Going down next to the state of Arkansas, you have Tom Cotton, who's running unopposed, so that's not really an issue here, but that's going to be easily going to him. He still raised $8 million there. Louisiana here. If we just go to Louisiana, Republicans are also swamping out the Democratic candidate, which is not going to be an issue for them to win that district. The next one, the state of Texas, which has actually got a lot of funding because, again, it's a big state. It's got $25 million in funding, but, John Cornyn's got a huge lead in terms of fundraising. That's going to be an easy win for John Cornyn in terms of the fundraising. Oklahoma here, the next state. If we go to the Senate race here, we have Jim Inhofe, who is easily winning in terms of the fundraising. The next state is Kansas, which is actually quite an interesting one because you have a very hotly contested primary. It's an open primary here. Barbara Bollier is actually winning in terms of the fundraising here, which is quite interesting. And another thing to note is that incumbents are usually going to have more in fundraising just because they are the incumbent. They're getting a lot from their party, things like that. But they often spend less as well, so they often have an advantage, and that's what we'll see in some of these other races coming up in a second. But Democrats are already at 48 seats here, which they won Kansas, which I don't think is actually going to happen unless Chris Kobach is the nominee, who really does not have much funding. It's looking like he is going to lose, so that's not going to be too much of an issue for Republicans in terms of winning that seat. In terms of the Nebraska primary, it looks like Ben Sasse is doing exceptionally well. The next state is South Dakota here. South Dakota, you don't have very much funding, but it doesn't really matter. Mike Rounds is going to easily win that district. It's getting a bit more competitive now, 44-48 in favor of the Democrats. The next one is the state of Montana, which actually has quite an interesting one, where you have Steve Daines running against Steve Bullock. Steve Daines does have an edge against Steve Bullock. He is the incumbent, but that is bad news for Democrats there. The next the next state is the state of Wyoming, where you really don't have much funding at all, but it doesn't really matter because Cynthia Lummis is going to easily win in terms of the fundraising there. The next state will go over to the state of Idaho here, a less interesting one. That's going to be, again, another easy victory with James E. Risch here, who's going to win it and putting it at 47 for the Republicans. Now we have an interesting one here. The state of Colorado with $24.5 million in funding. Cory Gardner actually does have an edge on John Hickenlooper, the former governor of the state. They've spent about a similar amount of money, and Cory Gardner's about doubled him in terms of the cash on hand. So that's actually quite bad for Democrats there. They do expect them to still win it, but in terms of fundraising, it is actually quite good for Cory Gardner here. We'll go over to the state of Oregon here. Oregon with Jeff Merkley's seat. There is $9 million in funding. Jeff Merkley is going to easily win that seat, putting Democrats at 49 here. We'll go down to Alaska because it's actually an interesting one. You don't have a Democratic candidate. You have a, quote, independent candidate who's really just a Democrat, or left-leaning, I guess, center-left maybe you could say. Dan Sullivan is about doubling his fundraising there, so that's going to go to him. Then getting down to these final two states here. First, we'll go to the state of Arizona here. Arizona is one of the highest funding. You have Mark Kelly, who's been very good at fundraising here. Mark Kelly actually doing very well against Martha McSally in terms of fundraising, and he has way more cash in hand as well. That looks to be a very good sign of victory for Mark Kelly. And then getting into the final state of New Mexico, you just had the primary here the other day. if we go into the state here and its Senate election, we can see that Ben Ray Lujan is heavily outraising Mark Ronchetti, the former meteorologist. So that's the final map here. We have Democrats at 51 seats, winning some pretty unorthodox seats: Kentucky, Kansas, Alabama, but losing Colorado, losing North Carolina. Overall, this is quite a good map for Democrats overall. Democrats could make improvements in states like Montana and states like Colorado and states like North Carolina. Republicans want to make gains in states like Maine and states like Arizona, and because I do expect them to win Alabama easily. I expect them to win Kentucky quite easily. I expect them to win Kansas quite easily, as long as Chris Kobach's not the nominee. So they won't really have to worry much about those districts, but they will have to worry about states like Arizona. They'll have to worry about states like Maine, whereas Democrats, again, will have to worry about states like Montana, about states like Colorado, about states like North Carolina. So this is the map here. Again, 51 Democrats, 49 Republicans, based solely off fundraising alone. So thank you all for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. And thank you all for watching, guys, and I will see you guys later.